What's going on, golf addicts? David Barnett here of the Tour Junkies. I got Pat Perry of the Tour Junkies with me, and this is Tour Junkies After Dark for the PGA Championship 2020 from TPC Harding Park, right there in lovely San Francisco. It's going to be,
That's a great place. I've been
a great place. Yes, it is a nice place. Pat, I'm excited about it. We're going to get into this tonight. We just recorded our own podcast, and there's some disagreement there. But while we're here, go ahead and be sure and hit the thumbs up button right here on this video. Give us a like, please. Give us a like. Leave us a comment if you want. Ask us something about the tournament, about a player, whatever. We always check those and like to comment on everyone that's not a porn bot trying to send us to some weird site. So we'd be glad to comment on anything else. And we're going to have a great show tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about a few names that made me raise my eyebrows when you picked them or did not pick them. And I'm sure you've got a couple. And then we'll look at some DK Sportsbook stuff. You know, we'll look at some outrights, some top tens, maybe some matchup bets, or what have you. It is Monday evening as we're recording this right now. So a lot of information to come. You can check out the DraftKings YouTube page, our YouTube page as well. And, of course, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can check out our podcast, Tour Junkies, and tourjunkies.com for the latest updates come Wednesday evening, right before you need to lock in your lineups and finalize your betting card. Pat, talk to us about Harding Park. Lovely spot.
Lovely spot. So I'll get into it a little more than normal because we haven't really seen this course all that much. It is a par 70, is playing 77,234 yards, but it could play about as much as 7,400 yards. It just kind of depends on where they put the tee boxes. We got bent grass greens this week. Maybe a little bit of POA creeping in there, but these are basically just bent grass, and they're going to run pretty true. They're fairly large greens by tour standards, but so they're going to be fairly easy to hit. But I think they're going to be pretty quick. We'll see how the PGA sets it up. We got 156 players this week in the field. Important note: the PGA Tour goes with T65 in ties to make the cut, but this week the PGA has said T70 in ties. So, again, we might get a few more that make it through the cut line. We've got 95 of the top 100 players in the world here this week, so it is a fantastic field. You got 7 par 4s that play longer than 460 yards. I think that's something to look at. 2 potentially, arguably, par 4s that are drivable. And then the 2 par 5s here are both over 560 yards. I think this course really tends to play itself into the hands of the Bombers. Now, you do have to be pretty accurate off the tee, and the rough is going to be penal. I mean, this Kentucky bluegrass, it can get stuck up in there, be tough. But I still think the Bombers are, as they every week, have an advantage as long as they hit the fairway. We're just going to have to see on that. And then really off the tee, there's a lot of bunkers that come into play. There's not really any hazards, but the bunkers are there. And they're even for the Bombers, they can't just fly it over them. They're going to have to be pretty strategic off the tee up here. But I do think it's all about approach. You've got to attack these pins, but you got to be careful about when you do it and when you're aggressive. It is a very tough track. I think scoring is going to be tough to come by this week. Weather looks pretty good, though. So we'll see how it is from a scoring standpoint. But I'm excited to see it. Now, we've seen it a few times before, and I'll give you the most recent examples. They did play the 2015 match play event here, which Rory won. I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in this. I'm just letting you know kind of where we've seen TPC Harding Park before. They played the President's Cup here in 2009. Tiger scored the most points out of any player that week. And then they also played back in 2005 another World Golf Championship event here, and Tiger won that as well, which he was winning everything at that time anyway. So yeah. I don't know what you can glean from that. But there you go, DV. Any thoughts on the course that you have that I may have missed?
Don't really want to belabor the course breakdown too much. You can check that out a lot of different places. But we did get into it pretty detailed on our own show. But here's what I think. I think that what we've seen in PGA championships in the last 20 years is that recent form matters. You need to come in playing well, and actually there's a little trend where I think all but 2 of the last 20 winners or so, I may be a little off on that, but it's pretty close, have won a PGA Tour event in the last year. So, you got to come in good form. You got to come in playing well, confident. I do think that length is an advantage for sure. That doesn't mean that players are going to be, pulling out driver everywhere, but I do think with some of these long approaches, longer holes, long irons, the longer players, if they can, have a great week and a solid ball striking week, it's going to help here. The greens are not really that crazy here. You mentioned they're bent grass greens. You're going to hear some bent. You're going to hear some POA. These are bent grass greens. It is California where we typically see POA, but these greens are some sort of resistant bent, is what we found out. So there's not a whole lot of POA. They're going to roll like bent grass. They're larger greens, and there's not a ton of undulation. So it's all about being in the short grass, getting onto the putting surface in regulation or under, and then making hay from there. So that's what it's about for me. I do think ownership, obviously, in terms of DFS is going to be somewhat of a thing, but Pat mentioned it's the 95 of the top 100 players in the world, which means ownership's going to be kind of spread out. We saw that with WGC last week. There may be 2 or 3 or maybe 4 guys that seem chalky, like over 20% owned in most tournaments on DraftKings, but I don't think you're going to get a lot of that. But you still need to make sure that 2 or 3 guys in your lineup give you some leverage, sub 5, sub 7, 10%, some low-owned guys that can pop and give you a little bit of leverage in those lineups is what I think you're going to need to do as well. So I won't go too far into it, Pat. But as you mentioned, 155 players, but really 115 of them are worth the dang. The rest of them are pretty garbage.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a high percentage of 6 of 6 this week, unless I don't know, the top 10 players in the world have to test positive. They test positive and they have to drop out for whatever reason. Like I don't see a way, unless all the chalk just completely bombs, which I don't see that happening. You're going to have a high percentage of 6 of 6. So you're going to need some leverage for sure. All right. Let's get to a few picks that I think we disagree on, Pat.
Okay.
The first one is a name that I think everybody is going to be drawn to, and that is Tiger. You mentioned Tiger Woods as a player that you like. I guess for me, the only thing about Tiger is, and I know he's been at the course, he's been playing. Today's Monday. We saw some stuff on social. He was out there this afternoon. I just don't love Tiger when it's going to be a little cooler. Temperature is going to be a little cooler. I think the high for the entire week is 70. I think most of the time it's going to be in between 50 and 65 degrees when these guys are teeing off. We know he said it, that he can't get as loose as he wants to get when he's playing in cooler temperatures. I just don't love – I mean, we saw him at Memorial. He was okay. I think he finished 40th. It wasn't great. And, he is a public play, which I still don't think he's going to be super high owned. I think he's probably going to be that 12 to maybe 15% in the milli maker and probably less than that in more sharp contests. So it's not like a crazy – I'm going to fade him because he's going to be high owned. It's just more of I don't know. I think I'd just rather play it safe and not risk playing Tiger in the back not working out for him.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with Tiger too. I mean, we talk about public money and all that kind of stuff, and what you're talking about is that we have a lot of new players to the game. Typically, when you have a major and milli makers and all that stuff, we have had milli makers though since pretty much, except for last week, since the restart. So there's a lot of and it's been one of the only games in town. So I don't know how much necessary public money's coming in, because it really has been the only game anyway. But now that we've got basketball and the NBA and all that kind of stuff, and there are some larger contests, I don't know how much that
we have
plays
basketball
into
and the NBA. We do.
I mean, basketball and Major League Baseball, and which probably is going to be going away anyway soon. But anyway, plus I just like to play Tiger. I like to play him. I think if he plays well, there's only going to be one day where he's got an early morning round, because then he's going to be playing later in the day anyway. So it doesn't matter. We all know that Tiger gets up at like 4 a.m. and tries to get his body ready, even if he is teeing off at like 1 o'clock. So I don't know if that really is going to matter all that much for me. And is one of the best ball strikers in the world. He's played well on this course before. He probably knows it better than any other player that's been that's here as far as experience playing in events on this course. So, I mean, I think he's a good play. I like that price at $9,200. If he is – now, I didn't like where I saw him owned at the Memorial and he was like 20% in
20%.
tournaments. I'm not a fan of that, so I may come back, and if he's looking like that, come Wednesday, may not be a play. But I still think he can play Tiger this week.
So what's the number? What's the number for you personally where you're going to fade him in a large GPP?
I think if he's in that 15 to 20% range, I'm fading him. If he's less than 15%, probably not.
Okay. Yeah, I really don't have a whole lot of. I mean, he didn't blow it out. He didn't blow it out the box at the Memorial. I mean, he wasn't super impressive, but first competitive event back. It's just more about the back situation. It's just more about the cooler air, cooler temperatures. That's really my.
I think the back is always going to be an issue for him, forever and ever.
It is, but it's less of an issue, and he said that when he's in warmer climates. So
yeah. He's wearing a sweater today on social media. When I saw some, so I mean, like that kind of warms you up a little bit,
Okay.
Maybe he's got a heat pad on his back underneath there. I got to talk about this guy though, because I can't ever figure him out. You feel like you've got the spidey sense with him this week, and that is Hideki Matsuyama. I mean, now I like the price at 8,200. He's been a little kind of hit or miss since we started back. I mean, I guess he played okay. He's T20 last week, but missed the cut of the Memorial. I mean, I just not a big fan of Hideki. I feel like he's kind of a trap this week. Now, ownership's probably going to be lower than you typically would get Hideki.
Yeah.
But I need to be convinced, because to be honest, I want to be convinced to play Hideki, but I'm not quite there yet.
I do feel like he's going to be a lower owned play. I think if you look at the 8K range on DraftKings, he's going to be lower than Berger, lower than Morikawa, lower than Hovland, for sure. Okay. Then we get into like Day, Fowler, Fitzpatrick, who he's around. I think there's a real chance that Day ends up being more popular than him because the way Jason Day's been playing, 3 consecutive top 10s. I think there's a chance Ricky ends up being more popular than him. People love to play Ricky anyway in a public Millie Maker major contest.
One.
Yeah. And he played well last week except for Sunday, so he got a little TV time. And I think Matt Fitzpatrick, the way he's been playing, which is also very strong, I think there's a chance he goes higher owned than Hideki. So I feel like Hideki may be a little bit of a pivot leverage play in tournaments that gives you a lot of upside because, I mean, although we've not seen Hideki close the door on a major, we've for sure seen him compete in majors and very strong fields. And since the restart, even with a couple of missed cuts in there, he's 11th in this field in strokes gained approach, and he's 14th in this field in greens and regulation. If he could hit a few more fairways this week, I think it sets up really nicely for Hideki. This is an approach, an iron golf course. This is an approach play golf course. Plus, his best putting surface over the last 100 rounds, so long-term putting range is what I like to look at. Long-term putting, he's seen the most success on bent grass over Bermuda and POA. He sucks at Bermuda. Okay, now Hideki sucks putting, period.
I mean, that's what's so funny is like you look at it, and I'm looking at the last 100 rounds on bent, and he's 67th in the field, but it's his best surface.
It's his best one.
I mean, like he sucks. He just cannot putt. If he can putt good Lord.
He just makes his hay ball striking, and so I think you're going to get him at a pivot, and you know that you're getting him with winning upside. He has winning. His upside, his ceiling is a victory, even though he's not done it. But his ceiling is a victory. He's competed in majors. He's been in the final group in majors. He's done it. So, and he comes in good form. I mean, it's not as great a form as Jason Day, but it's solid form. T20 like last week, like you mentioned. And then before that, a 22nd at the Workday and a 21st at the Rocket Mortgage. He missed the cut at the RBC Heritage, which is his first event back off the restart, and that's not a great golf course for him anyway. I was a little surprised to see him miss the cut at the Memorial, but the Memorial played tough, man. That was a brutal golf course, and it played really tough. And it was he's won on it before, but he didn't. It was the only tournament that you can find. You'd have to go back to. Let me see how far you have to go. The Memorial was the first tournament you could find until you go back to the Arnold Palmer in March of 2018, where Hideki lost strokes in both strokes gained off the tee and strokes gained approach. Just a rough week. And then he bounced back last week, and he gained basically 4.5 strokes between strokes gained off the tee and strokes gained approach. So I'm a believer. I'm a believer.
You may have convinced me.
Let me ask you this, because I got a guy that you said you were going to fade, and I didn't talk him up. I didn't pick him, but I'm a little intrigued just because the form is so good, except for last week. Mr. Tyrrell Hatton from England, mate. That's a terrible accent, Tyrrell Hatton.
Yeah, you don't. Every time you try and do like even on the show or whatever,
it goes Australia.
It does. Yeah, it goes Australia or some other. It just never works. I mean, I got a
great Aussie accent, mate.
Yeah, you can do that one.
Talk to me about Hatton, because I mean, other than last week, if you throw that out, the dude's
he's been playing incredibly well. He didn't play good last week, so you talk about like recent form isn't that great. I mean, across the board, he's pretty good when it comes to stats. I mean, he's not like great on bent. He's better than Hideki on bent, but pretty much everyone is. But I'm wondering where his ownership's going to be. I don't like he's not that long off the tee. He's like 84th in the field in driving distance. The courses that he's played well on have not been like this one. Like, I think this one's going to be a little bit more like too much for him. And I just don't see him playing as well as he has been playing, just based on that. I think it's going to be, I don't mind him at the Heritage, those kind of courses that, he's great on approach. He's been fantastic, I think, from a ball striking standpoint and everything else. But I mean, he's 80th in the field off the tee, which is one of the stats that I think you've mentioned on the show as one of your favorite stats. He's 69th in driving accuracy. I mean, 84th in driving distance. I mean, just like other than like those approach type stats, which I do like, I'm not feeling Hatton like his game for this course. I just don't think it fits as well as some others around him do. And so I think I will fade him. Now, ownership's probably not going to be I would guess like what, 10% maybe? It's not going to be.
Maybe.
Yeah. But unless they've really been paying attention to his form and they, that people just want to jump on him. But I'm just not I'm not feeling Hatton.
He's got a good track record in majors, man. I mean, if and he wins tough. I mean, he won the Arnold Palmer. Bay Hill's no slouch. 6th in WGC Mexico. I'm just going backwards. 6th at the WGC Mexico in February. 6th at the Open Championship last year. 21st at the U.S. Open last year. Made the cut in the PGA and the Masters last year. Didn't do anything really great, but made the cut in both. In 2018, he finished 10th at the PGA, 6th at the U.S. Open in 2018. Like, the guy can pop up on difficult courses and big fields. He's definitely got some chops. So I just don't know.
I really like a lot of the guys around him, and I just don't think he's going to just end up in a lot of lineups this week. I'm actually, to be honest, surprised that you actually like him. Because whenever we talk about him on the show, you never are a big fan of Hatton.
I'm actually not sure. I'm honestly not sure if I like him or not. I can't. I just when you cold faded him, I was like, I could see myself kind of warming up to Hatton by the time it's lineup making time. So that's all.
And for perspective, we don't need to get into it that much, but on the show we say we're going to have to pick one guy we're going to fade. And he was the guy that popped for me. There's several in here that I might could make a case for, but that was it. So
okay. You want to get into some DK Sportsbook action?
Let's do it. I think there's a lot of good bets this week. Some good numbers.
All right, well, let's start off, man. What you like in the outright market. Let's start with some shorties, and let's work our way down the board.
I like to throw the shorties out there, and it helped me a little bit with John Rahm a couple of weeks ago because I got him at it was either 20 or 22 to 1. I can't remember, which I thought was just way too high a number. And this week, the guy for me in that category is Xander Schauffele at 18 to 1. I think he is a fantastic play at that number.
All aboard the Xander train, baby. All aboard. I'm on it.
Great course for him. He is a California kid. So I think, he's obviously used to these conditions out here in San Francisco. And and everything else. So I like Xander at 18-1. I think that is a great play. And one of the guys I loved on the show in my DFS lineups was Patrick Cantlay. I like him at that number of 25-1. So I will throw him in there as well. So on the shorter end, if you're kind of going in from 30-1 in, those are my two favorites. What about you? Do you got anybody up here up near the top?
No, I mean, I do like Xander. I will go with you there on Xander. Other than that, Webb Simpson at 33-1. I like that here. I like the accuracy. He's a great long iron player. So I don't mind getting in on Webb at 33-1. Major champion as well. Can definitely compete in this field. That'd probably be as short as I would go, honestly. Yeah, I mean, again, like, so we talked about how small this field really is, right? Like, there's only about 115 players that could even have a chance of making the cut, in my opinion. But I think you knock that down even further when you talk through, you got 95 of the top 100 in the world here. You've got a difficult golf course, major championship conditions, one of the strongest fields you could assemble, favors long hitters, and incoming form being something that over the last 2.5 decades has been an absolute must. Like, you really start to whittle down how many guys could truly win this event. And I think that number is probably 70 to 75 guys. So, I look at because also, we have had names like Jason Duffner and Keegan Bradley and, those kind of names come up and win these golf tournaments as well in the past.
Jimmy
so it
Walker.
can happen. Jimmy Walker.
He was playing well at the time, but still, anyway.
Yeah, but still, definitely came out of nowhere. So when I start looking at some of the longer numbers on the board, it's interesting to me, some of these names, because I'm like, so I'm saying that because I'm tempted to just get long. You know what I mean? Like, take, for example, a guy who played really well last week on his way to a runner-up finish, Phil Mickelson at 90-1. California guy, right? Always plays, loves California, loves playing well.
He's just got to hit the fairways, though.
He's got to hit the fairways. But as I said on the show, you can play from the other fairway here as long as you spray it enough. If you just spray it a little bit, you're not going to be that great. But if you can spray it a lot, which Phil can definitely tend to do, you can hit over these cypress trees from the other fairway. But
this was a momentous occasion on the podcast, by the way, because we've been doing this for 5 years, and never has there ever been a take on I don't believe, of playing it from the other fairway. Like, if you miss it so bad, you're going to play it from the other fairway, and you're in great shape.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not hating on it. I mean,
it was really interesting to see him play as well as he did last week.
It was.
And at 90-1, it's just, that's what I'm saying. Like, when you think about the guys who truly have a chance to win here, that's just a big number. There's a lot of value in that number. I'm going to keep going deep here. You probably have some more middle guys. You want to hop around?
I got a few middle guys that I like, and one of them, I still like Victor Hovland at 45-1. I know he just shanks chips everywhere, and you just got to pray to the chipping and the scrambling gods that he has a good week.
Hovland is not winning this golf tournament. If
think
Hovland wins this golf tournament, I will do something crazy. I don't know.
Okay,
he's not going to can't win.
I think
he can win, but he won't.
A guy that hits it off the tee like he does and has the ball striking ability and approach and everything else, he can win the damn tournament.
He can.
If you're saying he's not one of those 70 guys.
I shouldn't have said that. No, I'm trying to recant that right now. He can. He won't, is what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Anyway, but I like even more Abraham Answer at 55-1. He's a guy that has been in great form. He had one bad round last week. Other than that, he would have been right there at the very end if you just took out the 75 he had on Friday, make that even par, and he's in the hunt. So I think Abraham Answer is good at 55-1. And kind of middle there, a guy that I don't really like in DFS, and I'll probably fade, but I just can't get over this number, and that's Justin Rose at 75-1. I mean, he's a major winner. He's taken a couple weeks off. I know he hasn't played all that great, but I think that's just too high of a number for him. And so I think I will throw some down there. And then I got a few longer plays, but I'll let you go first there, and I'll button us up.
Well, let's bring some long shots in here. I like Ryan Palmer and Bubba Watson, both at 125-1. Ryan Palmer nearly won Memorial just a couple weeks ago, but John Rahm beat him out. Tough golf course, great field. Palmer's played really well since the restart. 125-1. He's a PGA Tour winner. Can compete in this field. I think that's a long number. And then Bubba, who I think has kind of found a little something. He's been working with Claude Harmon as of last week on some putting and some course management type stuff, which I think is interesting. Had a good finish at the WGC St. Jude. And this course does tend to favor a right to left ball flight, which he favors as well. And Bubba tends to play well on some West Coast spots. Riviera, he plays well. He loves bent grass greens. Augusta National has bent grass greens, so he's going to putt well on those. I think that's a nice number for a multiple major winner in Bubba Watson. Other than that, I might sprinkle in a little 180-1. Your boy that you almost had last week, Tom Lewis. We sweated him out. You sweated him out at 225-1. And he coughed it up on the last couple holes, but had a chance to win the WGC. He comes in really good form and probably very confident. 180-1 for a guy like that. Again, big form is key. Solid form is key. So I think that's interesting. And then finally, I'll go with Harold Varner III at 250-1. That's just a stupid number. That's a ridiculous number for Harold Varner. He's not won on the PGA Tour yet, but he almost won at Riviera. Another West Coast course earlier this year. He hits it a long way. He's got a good head on him. He's been in contention enough that I think HV3 has the chops to get it done at a PGA. I think it takes a little less to me to win if I'm ranking majors. To win a PGA, it takes a little less than to win the US Open, the Open, and the Masters. I feel like those three are a little bit different. Like the PGA Championship is like definitely above a WGC event, but it's kind of a step above, It's like guys like HV3 I don't see are ready to go out and win a US Open or Open Championship or Masters, but I could see them doing that on the PGA.
Yeah, we talked about for a second earlier with some of the winners we've had here. You even go back to Y.E. Yang and players like that. Those
Sean
are
McKeel.
That Sean McKeel, that happens at PGA Championships, which is why Rich Beam, love Rich Beam, but Bob May almost beat freaking Tiger Woods. They had to go to a playoff. So these are you get these long shots that just find themselves at the end of this tournament because they set it up a little more easier than they do for the most part than a lot of majors, and you don't have some of the things like you have weather at the Open. The Masters is what it is. The U.S. Open is just they try to set up as difficult as possible. So I do think these long shots, there's a lot of people that you can really look at and have a chance to win. I was with you on HV3. I had him written down. I like Harris English at 100-1. I think he's coming in pretty good form. He had a T18 at the 3M. He had a top 13 finish or T13 finish at the Memorial. So those were his last two events. So right there. I think that is a good number for him. I like Adam Hadwin as well at 150-1, a guy that we know is a fantastic putter, and I want the guys that are great putters this week for a lot of my bets and a lot of my DFS plays, and he is one of them that is – he's pretty much good on almost any surface. It doesn't really matter. So I like Adam Hadwin at 151 as well. And if you want, I'll kind of throw in some top 10s here. You mentioned HV3. I think he could also go top 10 at 16-1. I think that's a pretty good number for him as well. I like Doc Redman at 20-1. We've seen him play well at spurts in the restart, not necessarily recently. But I think that could be an interesting number. Also, we haven't seen anything out of Rafa Cabrera Bello, but I could just see him being another guy that pops out of nowhere and finishes top 10 at 28-1. So I like that.
We've seen him throw up all over himself. No.
Yeah, but, we'll see.
I'd rather have Cameron Tringali at 18-1, who's played much better since the restart than Rafa Cabrera Bello. But Tringali's a tee to green guy. Great iron player. Doesn't get in a lot of trouble. Doesn't make a lot of big numbers. If I want to bet a long shot for a top 10, I think Tringali could do it. So I'll go him. And I agree with you on the HV3 bet. Let's talk a few matchups, and we'll button this thing up. I got 3 here that I'm looking at. The first one we've talked about is Bryson DeChambeau at -125 as a favorite over Xander at +100. I like the number. We talked about this on the podcast. We don't need to get into it a lot, but Bryson, could definitely attempt to overpower this golf course, hit from other fairways, as I mentioned. But the iron play and the wedge play has been very, very lackluster. So, and the putting has been incredible, which may stick around, but also may revert a little bit and regress. So, I like Xander a lot, and I like him at a plus number. You give me Xander in a plus matchup, I would take that on. I would take him in a plus matchup against anybody other than maybe Justin Thomas right now. Also, I like Shane Lowry at -106 as a slight dog to Justin Rose at -118. I like the old Shane Lowry. He's playing well right now, playing better than Justin Rose, who you mentioned just a minute ago. So I don't know. I think that's an interesting number for Lowry. And then finally, a guy I just talked about a lot, Ryan Palmer at +100 as an underdog to Chez Reavie at -125. Now, I like Chez. I think Chez will play well. Very accurate player, also in good form. But I think these two players are just they're in the same class of player. And you could argue Palmer's playing better slightly with his runner-up at Memorial. He's a longer hitter, so he's going to have better approach yardages and clubs into these greens if he can hit the fairways. So I like the plus number of Ryan Palmer over Chez Reavie. That's it for me.
All right, I'll throw one out there, and we already had the talk about Tyrrell Hatton, and I am going to go with Corey Connors at +110 over Tyrrell Hatton. I think Corey Connors is a good fit for this course. As a matter of fact, I can't remember what his outright number is, but he's another one that you might could look at from an outright standpoint. But I like that matchup for him. I think he can beat him, and so I will go with Corey Connors +110 over Hatton.
Connors is 100-1 outright, 18-1 for top 5, 8-1 for top 10.
I don't mind that 100-1 there either.
All right, man. That was awesome. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We appreciate it. Like I said, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe here to the DraftKings channel. Check out all the content for the PGA Championship this week. It's going to be a great week. The first major of this wild 2020. We got the U.S. Open in September. Then you got the Masters in November. Going to be a lot of fun. This should be a good one. Thanks, everybody, for watching. May your screens be green. See ya. Out.